Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror, movies, and awesomeness. This week we continue our Haunted House retrospective with the 1973 horror film The Legend of Hell House, starring Roddy McDowall and Gail Honeycutt. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the Ben 10 comic series from IDW. With me from Austin is Drew Edwards, writer of the long-running comic Halloween Man, coming soon from Monsterverse Comics in a new form, and contributing writer to Rockabilly Online and Monsterverse's Tales from the Grave. Say hello, Drew.
Hello. Glad to be back.
Hello and welcome back. Also in Austin, Tony Salvaggio, writer of the Victorian mech comic Clockworks from Humanoids and Psycom from Right Stuff and Tokyopop, lead singer of the band Deserts of Mars. Say hello, Mr. Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also in Denver with color commentary, as always, host of the mom-oriented podcast Pod Moms, attorney Julia Guzman. Say hello.
Hello, darling.
Okay, hello. So kind. All right. The Legend of Hell House. I'm excited about this. This is a 1973 British horror film directed by John Howe with a screenplay by Richard Matheson based on his own novel, Hell House. The plot of the movie, like the book, is about a group of 4 people, a scientist and his wife, and 2 psychics, one of whom has barely survived one expedition into the house already, who have to explore this house in order to prove or disprove the existence of the afterlife. It is, in other words, yet another haunted house expedition movie. In many ways, a reworking of The Haunting of Hill House, which we already discussed in its film form, The Haunting. So, Legend of Hell House, 1973. This is going to be fun. Let's get first impressions. We'll keep it short, and we'll go straight into some of the topics. So let's go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. Tony, first impressions, and also, as always, I want to know if you have a personal history with this movie.
Man, I think I thought I had seen it, but I may have only seen parts now after watching it. Wow, it was really cool. I didn't anticipate how much, the kind of there's a lot of different themes running, the kind of psychosexual kind of stuff that was going on, as well as just, it's scary. Truly scary and creepy in parts.
Yeah.
The science versus supernatural. Obviously it borrows from Hill House liberally, I would say. And if any people who created it said, "Oh, we never seen that movie," I don't know. I think I would have to call them on that. But I think it was awesome. I also really enjoy its Britishness, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
It's very British in all ways, in all the good ways, I guess. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Are you talking about it in terms of the gentility of the characters or the behavior?
Everything that Hammer. It's I don't know, man. Just everything about it.
You're right.
Like all
you're right.
the things that you expect from something British, and there's some of it you can go with that, and also there's intangible things that
Yeah.
It just, but it all works. I love it.
That's wonderful. All right, Julia, Legend of Hell House. I assume this is your first time seeing this movie.
This is my first time seeing this movie, and I thought it was a delightful picture, to use our friend Adam's word. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's so spooky. I really like films that rely more on the mood and the sound and the lighting and all that, and just a few kind of special effects. But I prefer even less special effects than there even were in this film, because it's just, I like it when the spookiness of the film is set entirely with the mood and the acting, and there's a lot of that here. I really enjoyed it.
Wow, Drew, what are your first impressions of Legend of Hell House?
This is a movie I actually do have a little bit of history with. I remember coming across it in VHS form when I was in junior high, and the VHS tape had this wonderful VHS artwork on it, as the old video cassettes always did.
Yeah.
Where it had this skull that was turning into the house, and underneath that image there was the image of the main scientist with a candlestick through his throat. So it was this very striking image, and I had, of course, like every curious teenage boy, I had to rent it based off of that.
Sure.
But, I greatly enjoy this movie. It has been described to me once, and I can't remember who, so I'm sorry I can't give credit for this quote, is the raunchy version of The Haunting.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is an accurate description. But this movie's also, I feel like, sort of a precursor to Ghostbusters in many ways, even though it's played dead straight, because with its whole science versus the supernatural thing that they have going on in it.
Yeah, yeah. My first impression, so really quickly, my history with this is that back when I was an RA at the University of Dallas, all through October, I would show double features every Thursday night in the lounge.
Of course you would.
of our dorm, and we called them Thursdays in Hell. And what
you do,
like you do, at a Catholic university. And I to this day, I'm shocked that they approved any of this stuff, but whatever. We showed.
And by approved, you mean they didn't kick you out once they found out you were doing it?
Right. But anyway, this one night, I remember we showed The Haunting and The Legend of Hell House back to back, and boy, that was a great combination, because you're exactly right. This is the Legend of Hell House, or Hell House as the novel was called, and the novel is great. Matheson made no bones about it. He said, "I'm doing my version of The Haunting of Hill House." He goes, "This is Richard Matheson's Haunting of Hill House. It's his homage to Shirley Jackson." And the funny thing is that has happened a lot because, and we'll go right into the first topic. This is a particular kind of haunted house movie, and I called it. I don't even know what technically you'd call it, but there's a bunch of haunted house kind of movies out there. This is what I call the haunted house expedition movie. The Haunting of Hill House is probably the first one by Shirley Jackson, and it was all like super psycho. You couldn't tell if it wasn't all happening in the girl's mind. This one, Matheson makes no bones about it. You know for sure there are real ghosts here. It's just a matter of what's going on with it. And Stephen King does one, and he did a movie. He did a
Rose Red.
Rose Red. And Rose Red is exactly the same plot again. It's about a scientist who puts together an expedition of it's always a couple of psychics and a couple of people who you're not quite clear exactly why they're coming along on the expedition. That is always the case, and it's certainly the case here. I get giddy when I see this stuff. It's like they got all their equipment. They're gonna, there's always this sort of moment when somebody says, "Okay, well, you're going to be locked in. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Hope you prove the existence of the afterlife."
Or in this case, we'll see you on Christmas Eve, which I was like, really?
Right.
That's odd.
This is what they're doing with their Christmas vacation. It's wonderful.
that's just the rich guy messing with them. I'm
Yes.
so rich. I bet I can get you to do this over Christmas vacation.
Bah, humbug, Tiny Tim.
Exactly.
You're all going to die, and it's going to be a special Christmas gift to your families.
Yeah, he's such a rich guy, man.
Maybe he wants them to find. Maybe he wants them to find the ghost of Christmas future.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh, see, that would be awesome. Or maybe he's haunted by Cratchit.
Yeah.
Like, I hope he gets rid of that guy. He keeps jangling his.
Gosh, we should go back and watch it now with as if it was all Scrooge and see how that would change our perspective on the film.
It would be really funny if the guy because for the listener, they have the people on this expedition ostensibly have been hired to receive $100,000, which is a big deal, in 1973.
And now
each person is going to be paid $100,000 to spend a couple of, I guess a fortnight in this super-duper haunted house, or as Clive Revel, the Dr. Barrett, the leader of the expedition, calls it, the Mount Everest of haunted houses.
Yeah, it's December 20th to December 24th.
Right, so they only got to do not even a fortnight. They got to spend 4 days, about half a week, and they're going to get $100,000, or about $25,000 a day that they survive. And all they're supposed to do is just hang out there, do scientific experiments, and hopefully bring back proof that there is a life after death. And so they take this deal, I guess, because just like the guys in last week's movie, all of them need money. And the people on this expedition we have the very sort of handsome Clyde Revel, who plays a scientist who believes, we're going to find out, believes in, how best to put it, he believes in psychic phenomena, but not in ghosts. He believes that, like, the mind...
Like telekinesis. Like, he thinks when stuff starts moving around the house, that it's somebody doing it with telekinetic powers.
He's like Professor X. He basically believes that it's all just mutant powers. And then there's his wife, who is there to be beautiful. And she's very smart, and she sort of assists him with his assignments. But basically, she just comes along because she always does. And she's played by Gail Honeycutt, who is the most, like, elegant-looking early 1970s actress that they ever invented for the films. I mean, she's got this sort of perfect, extremely long nose and this sort of tapered face. She looks like a sort of model version of a movie star in a British film. And she's from Fort Worth, by the way. I should mention that despite her British accent, she's actually from Fort Worth, Texas. And then there's Pamela Franklin, who plays... There's only 4 people. So there's the doctor and his wife. There's Pamela Franklin. She is a super religious, what they call a mental medium, which means that she receives messages from the grave. And although we don't understand much about it, she's like super religious. She wears a cross. She wears sort of a Puritan outfit. And
she looks like Wednesday Addams.
Right. And they pick her up from a church. You know, that she clearly, and it seems to me there's a character just like this in The Haunting as well. I can't remember. I mean, to be honest, these 2 movies almost run together. And finally, there's Roddy McDowall, and they pick him up at the train station. And I love, there's a whole sequence early on where the doctor takes the job and he goes, okay, and next we see he's literally driving around. He's assembling the team in a big car. He's just driving around picking up people. And so he picks up Pamela Franklin, who is, by the way, super young, too. And then he picks up Roddy McDowall, who is, I don't know, in his late 30s. I really have no idea how old Roddy McDowall is, but he looks like he looks like the most tightly wound man you've ever met. You know, he's extremely thin. He's hiding behind these big glasses. He's got this coat pulled around him, and he seems to strain to open his mouth whenever he has to say something. And whenever he has to say something, it's usually second-guessing something that the professor has to say. So that's our expedition. You know, and I mean, wasn't this a fantastic cast? I mean,
oh yeah.
Watching Roddy McDowall just sort of be. You get the impression watching Roddy McDowall that he's at every moment wondering why in God's name did he take this job.
To answer your question, by the way, he was born in 1928, so that would make him, what, 45? Yeah, I think. If you do math.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. You know, he looks great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as you guys mentioned, they've got all of this equipment. You know, so there's a lot of business with bringing the equipment inside. And I mean, all of this I just love. I love the fact that they move into the house and they're like, okay, we're all going to have our own rooms. You know, we're going to hang out. You know, and they start immediately. There's a certain, I think you're right about it being very British. Even though the book is American, there's something so British in my mind about the fact that they get to the house and they immediately sort of set about, like, the tasks of what's been assigned to them. You know?
I don't know. I guess it's, in general, too, it's British filmmaking and media. Like, again, it's hard to define exactly. I mean, I'm sure people have in many essays, but the look of it, the lensing of it, the direction, the director of photography, all of it, just the way their interactions are, the fogginess for
Oh yeah, we should talk about that.
Like all of the atmosphere, it feels like a Hammer film, you know, and all the stuff you love about Hammer films. So,
and yet it feels, in a sense, even classier than that. I mean, when they show up, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. There's no and later we're going to see this house looks the same no matter what time it is. But it's the house that they stand in front of, and they go into this gate, and yeah, there's fog everywhere. There's creepy ass music. There's this throbbing heartbeat sound going on all the time that basically is, as a viewer, it's freaking me out because it feels like something's watching and its heart is beating, just sort of and it's beating fast. And this house is a monstrously huge freaking thing. It looks, and if you saw Rose Red, the Stephen King miniseries, that was an even more monstrous house, and yet somehow you never really believed it, frankly, because Rose Red was maybe now it would be better, but at the time, it's like 15 years ago, and it's a computer-animated house, and it always at every moment looks like a giant drawing. This is a freaking big, scary house that you definitely kind of feel for them wanting to go into this thing, And in the book, actually, to get into that house, they have to drive across this like moat that's half, flooded. It's like the Woman in Lady in Black, or whatever it's called. Very similar situation. So I love that setup. So let's talk about what immediately they start doing. I mean, basically, you're supposed to stay there for 4 days, but we don't ever see him pass out kind of an agenda for how their 4 days are to be spent, but it's clear that they're expected to do certain tasks. And one of them is that the doctor is going to have the psychics do what he calls sittings, which basically means, I guess they put themselves in some kind of zone, and then they try to listen to whatever are the psychic eminences of this house. And
this house, by the way, is a place where all kinds of debauchery happened, and 27 people were killed at one point, and then 8 more people died in the course of trying to investigate what had happened to the first 27 people, and apparently there's all kinds he does this wonderful list of all the kinds of debauchery that there were. I just remember it was bestiality, and I don't remember what there was all these things that were happening.
Vampirism.
Well, what I like also, especially since it turns into this kind of psychosexual thing, is he lists all that, and our super religious mental medium is like, okay, vampire cannibalism, and he looks over and he's like, and some sexual things, and she's like, oh.
Well, and according to IMDb, it says the unsettling tales of Emmerich Belasco's acts of debauchery and evil at Hell House were loosely based on stories involving occultist Aleister Crowley.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Supposedly, it's really well written, and it's wonderfully. Even though this is a very sort of movie conversation they have, I didn't mind at all. They go, tell us, you seem to know a lot about the house. Tell us what went on here. And he just starts listing. Basically, you've got a man known as he had a name like the Giant or something.
The Roaring Giant.
The Roaring Giant, and he's Emmerich Belasco, and he controlled this house. And
he left millions when he died.
Yeah, and he had these debauched parties, and they did all kinds of crazy stuff, drugs and alcohol and vampirism and necrophilia and bestiality and all kinds of groovy stuff going on in this big house. And his last party, 27 people died in it, and then he was never seen again. He disappeared. And now the house has withstood. This is now the third expedition to try to explore the house. The last one, everybody got pretty much destroyed by it,
except for Roddy McDowall.
Except Roddy McDowall, who managed to make it out, and
which of course made me think that he was the one killing everybody, but I guess that's not what happened.
That would have been a different kind of movie.
Right. Well, yeah, so that means and the characters certainly begin to suspect when certain weird poltergeisty sort of things start happening. They think, well, since Roddy McDowall is what they keep calling
a physical medium,
mm-hmm. somebody whose powers do physical things, they think, well, maybe he's subconsciously or even consciously causing this stuff to happen. I love the fact that they take all this shit seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that all the characters, even the guy who doesn't believe in the afterlife, are like, oh yeah, physical mediums. Sure. You know,
sure.
Mental medium. It's all good. Here, get in my glass box. I got a lot of electronic equipment.
Well, I mean, that guy really, that guy's kind of like the Scully, because Scully eventually had to admit some things were weird, but every time a new weird thing would happen, she'd be like, okay, this I don't believe.
Right. That's right.
I also enjoy his other quirk, which is to totally dismiss women. Like, you know, his wife comes along and they're at the door and she's talking to he's basically like, don't be silly or whatever. But it's basically like, well, you know, if you want to be a woman about it. And then later on when she's working on his computer, he's like, hey, can I help? He's like, no, it's too complicated.
Yeah.
Dummy.
Well, that was the way people thought of us.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's you know, that's another part of placing this in the context that it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just the way he is you're like watching, like, man, you know, how did he get this hot wife? Why does she put up with his crap? Because he's at the beginning, she's like, well, you know, I don't think you should come along. Well, I want to. Okay, you know, if you,
well, so I don't,
you know,
I don't want.
Breath, he's going, if you want to be a woman about it.
Right.
I don't want to, Jason, I don't want to interrupt your flow of how your discussion goes. But
No.
I just want to talk real quick about the hot wife, and I think it's really funny that she's the one who gets possessed by the autoerotic phenomena.
Right.
She picks up a book that says autoerotic phenomena, and all of a sudden she's like all oversexed demon person.
Right.
Well, that's how it happens. Yeah.
So that's what he gets for bringing his wife.
I've seen a lot of movies, and that's how it happens, Julia.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. What was it? Drew, I think you were trying to say something.
I think it's one of the things that I think is really interesting about this movie is that your two heroes. You have the guy that we've been talking about, the scientist, who's basically a jerk. I mean, he really is a jerk. And then you have Roddy McDowall, who's essentially a coward. And that, to me, is fascinating because nobody in this movie is really your typical, you know, brave, noble hero type. Like, everybody's got their own axe to grind, and everybody, you know, even the young mental medium, you know, she's very much just kind of stuck on what she thinks is right as well.
Florence.
Like there's no real, Florence. There's no real traditional hero in this movie.
You're exactly right that they all, other than the wife, they all have their own axe to grind. You know, every one of them has their own sort of thesis about what's going on and how the world works. You know, and Roddy's is clearly, he even says it later on. He goes, there's no overcoming whatever is in this house. I need $100,000, so my big challenge is to not get killed over 4 days and collect my $100,000.
But then randomly at the end he decides that he can overcome the house, which I was kind of a little bit put off by how he suddenly decided that was the case when it didn't really seem to come.
I thought that was a cool a neat arc. But before we get to all that, I want to mention, you know, we were talking about the husband, you know, the Dr. Barrett, who's leading this group. This is not the way the character is in the book. In the movie, there's plenty of problems that we joke about, but the fact is he's a handsome actor and he has a certain sort of alpha male manliness to him that kind of fits into this. He's as close to a traditional hero as this movie's going to get. In the book, he's a lot more just insipid. You know, he's super smart, but he's also totally obsessed with his own research. He's kind of thin-skinned about it.
I kind of think he's like that here. He doesn't there's a certain ruggedness about him, but he seems pretty far up his own butt. Like he's kind of stuck on himself.
Well, I think that's also, you know, to be honest with you, though, I think that's also why he was hired.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the rich guy's looking at him, he's like, wow, you know, this guy, he's not going to flinch. He's going to do whatever he wants. I mean, as much as he is a jerk, like, if you look at, you know, there's a lot of people you may encounter in business and otherwise where you're like, man, that guy's a jerk. But then they're getting grants and they're doing stuff.
He ain't afraid of no ghost.
Yeah, and so if you're going to hire somebody who's going to be this guy, now, I mean, it's unfortunate for the rest of the people, but if you're going to hire somebody, you know, he's actually a pretty good hire. objectively, especially on paper, you know. Well,
but if I recall, the book character was also lame, physically lame. He had like a bad leg. He's impotent. You know, there's all kinds of sexual problems going on. You know, and so which makes the whole thing with his wife much easier to happen. Here, you just get the impression that he's just kind of, you know, distant and cold, you know, which is fine. I'm not complaining about the way because look, Richard Matheson did this to himself. Richard Matheson rewrote his character to be, frankly, a lot more likable, you know, because this guy.
So you like this guy?
I don't dislike him. I mean, I find, you know, I feel sorry for him when he can't accept that his experiment has gone wrong at the end.
No, that is you know his but he brings that on himself for being so narrow-minded.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying this is a way more likable version of this guy than the one that's in the book. For what that's worth.
Ouch.
You know.
No, I do actually. I know where you're coming from, but you know he is kind of jerky. So hearing that he's worse in the book, man. That's a rough dude right there. Like,
yeah, you really can't figure out why she puts up with him in the book, but you know, who knows? Maybe she's not as gorgeous as Gail Honeycutt in the book too. I honestly don't remember. So yeah, Gail Honeycutt, of course, is fantastic. So we have several things that basically go on simultaneously. It's like there's an A plot and a B plot and a C plot. The A plot. You've got Pamela Franklin, who's trying to, you know, the Florence Tanner. She's trying to solve the mystery of the house because she thinks that she's made contact with a young ghost named Daniel, who she says was the trapped son of the evil Emmerich Belasco.
She is so cool about that whole thing.
Yeah.
Where she's like, you know, Daniel comes to visit her in her room. And he's like throwing her sheets around.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. First he shows up. She channels him, and he shows up and tells everybody that he's going to have to kill them, and it's not his fault. He just is. He's just going to have to kill them. He's sorry. And so she kind of does this cool, like demon possessed voice where it's like. I was kind of wondering how they do that effect. At that point, do you think that they slow down the whole thing? Like, do you think she says it fast and then they slow down the whole thing? Or is there a way to slow down the sound without slowing down how she says it? Because it looks like she's actually
saying. The voice is
saying.
distorted. It might be a male actor.
I mean, you could, you know, there's all kinds.
I don't think it was a male
multiple.
actor. I think it was just slowed down the sound.
Well, there's multiple. I mean, you can pitch shift without slowing it down. Although in '73 that was probably a lot harder than it is now.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of ways. Like,
well, anyway, it's a cool effect, and then. So now he's threatened to kill everybody, but then he shows up in her room and throws her sheets around and does whatever. And then he leaves, and the next day they're like, how'd you sleep? She's like, great. And I'm like, how the frick did you sleep great? After that guy just like was like in your room and he just threatened to kill everybody.
Yeah. So she's got. Oh, go ahead.
She has her own stuff going on too, you know.
Yeah. What was it, Drew?
I said stiff upper lip. It's that Britishness.
Oh, yeah.
You know, although she's a weird mystic British.
Yeah, she's like a Glastonbury British.
Yes. So she's working on that mystery. Meanwhile, the professor has his own theory that what's going on is there's not a Daniel and a Mr. Belasco or whatever. There's instead just the house is a giant battery of bad psychic energy that just gets stronger and stronger every time people come around. And of course, Roddy McDowall has no opinion about it. He just believes that it's an evil place and he's just got to survive. And so they do a series of sittings. And you're right, all the real attacks begin when it mostly centers around young Pamela Franklin as Florence Tanner. She does the first sitting. She gets the attention of this demon that she thinks is Belasco, Daniel Belasco. This Daniel character falls in love with her. This ghost does. It hangs out in her room and wants to have sex with her. It physically attacks Dr. Barrett when he refuses to believe in him.
Oh man, that was crazy. The dinner scene where it's like throwing stuff everywhere. And by the way, I have never seen a spiky tray for holding down meat until this, and I kind of like, where do you get a meat spike tray?
I can't believe nobody got impaled at that thing. I really thought somebody was going to get impaled on it.
Well, he almost does, but still, I have never I don't know how standard that is. But I'm really curious where you get like this meat torture tray, and like where do they sell that?
It's so funny because that's
so insane. I guess
and that's the point when the movie starts to go weird. Is that freaking spiky meat tray? The ghost just gets mad at him for saying this ghost thing or whatever, and so the ghost grabs the meat tray and throws it at him, and he manages with his lightning fast professor reflexes. Moves out of the way.
Right. Well, he's a swashbuckling professor.
Yes.
So I love how it's like it's scary enough when it just starts breaking, like when it breaks cup, and you're like, oh man, wow, he's in trouble. And then it just everything, like it's poltergeist level, like more extreme impact, like how it tries to do stuff. That's
all
pretty
aimed
cool.
at him. When his coffee cup explodes, it's actually pretty scary to me. Yeah, you're right.
That's enough. It's just like, oh, this is just the beginning. It's time to throw, he throws the wine. Fire comes out of the fireplace and like
the chandelier falls almost on him.
Yeah. That's, wow.
So
and yet they go back to kind of normalcy after,
Yeah. It's that we get a look at what the ghost can actually do, and I love the fact that this ghost likes to sort of really punch. It'll be pretty calm, and then all of a sudden, like it won't just break your glass. It'll make your cup explode. It'll make the machine it's looking at just go boom. It's a violent ghost, and it is scary.
Yeah, and it doesn't just throw stuff around. It throws it at you, and it knocks people down. Like, oh man, I'm mad right now. It's so petulant and just mean.
Yes.
Like. Mean in a way that other like poltergeist things like will move chairs or like throw things, This or like the in the Changeling like the the thing comes down the stairs like the But this is actually like I'm going to trip you down the stairs or I'm surprised it didn't do that, but I guess it didn't give the opportunity. But like it's it's punch you down, throw you around kind of stuff. But it's also when it gets really mad. I like that kind of slow burn to it because the other times it's like possessing the wife to go fondle the statues and like doing stuff like that.
Oh, that's the other plot that's going on. That's the third plot. Is Gail Honeycutt is staying awake, and so she's on the bookshelf. There's a bunch of crazy old Victorian pornography books or whatever. Yeah, so they're psychological, but they're all sexually related books like autoerotic phenomena, whatever that is. And so that possesses her with the spirit of ghost horniness, and she walks down and throws herself at Roddy McDowall because unfortunately she is in a house alone with a little religious woman about 19 years old.
But why didn't she throw herself at her?
A weirdly flinty husband and Roddy McDowall. And so
I think it would have been more interesting if she would have thrown herself at the weirdly religious.
Well, and that would have been just like.
Well, she does suggest an orgy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
She does. And so that's going on, and so basically everybody's got their own conflicts, all of which should be good enough to cause them to leave, although they all have their own reasons for staying.
They don't have their own reasons for staying. The movie has their reasons for them staying. I really don't think they have reasons to stay. Every time they stay, I'm like, really? That doesn't seem like
money
the right
is the reason to stay.
Yes. Money is
greedy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think what's weird though is they really like, watching it, part of it with Rain, and she's like, $100,000 is not enough to put up with that.
To die? Well, I don't want to die for $100,000.
Well, yeah, exactly. Even though it was a lot more.
How much would be enough? How much would be enough for y'all to go to Hell House?
I don't know.
I'd do this for $100,000. I mean,
well, that's not a question of going. It's a question of staying once you see all the crap that's going on.
Yeah, that's.
Would you do what these people are doing for like let's say $2 million? Would you do it?
Well,
no.
Yeah,
anybody has died in that house. I'm not doing it.
That depends up until the point where spiky meat tray is flung at your head.
$2 million?
Drew.
It changes a lot.
Drew, I don't even practice law for $100,000, and I actually have a law license. That's how much I'll do for $100,000.
Yeah, the money is not the thing for Julia, but I would do it. You know, yes, in a heartbeat. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not concerned about it. You know, bring it on.
He always says that, and he always says it when he always says it when he's in the same house with me, which makes me scared. I'm like, stop saying that when I'm around.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
So if I ever become an eccentric billionaire, I know who's on my ghost team.
Yeah, I will not be the hot wife reading the autoerotic phenomena.
But Jason will be my manly professor.
Yes.
Yeah. Well.
He'll have to bring somebody else's hot wife, maybe Rain.
Right.
I don't think Rain. I think Rain's like, that's not worth it.
There will be no reading of autoerotic phenomena. Okay, that's a real book apparently. There's a whole list of the stuff that's on the horny ghost shelf. Let's see.
I think Jamie would make a good hot wife.
Yeah, Jamie is hot wife. I don't know if I want to pay my wife $2 million to go to certain death spots.
No.
The books are.
I think that would be bad for our marriage.
Your friends are fine though.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
Nice.
I was thinking the same thing, Tony. I'm like, thanks a lot, Drew.
I like your logic here. Man, my wife is off limits, but
Jason wants to go.
Yeah, no, it's true. So the books that she sees are Obsessive Acts and Religious Practices by Sigmund Freud, The Worship of Priapus by Richard Payne Knight, The Psychology of Sex by Havelock Ellis, Sin and Sex, Conation, Volition, Sex, and Celibacy by T. Long. I don't even know if some of these are real. The Anatomy of Abuses by Philip Stubbs. Oh, wow. Sorry.
Oh,
and, Phallic Worship and the autoerotic phenomena in adolescence.
Here's an interesting little tidbit on the IMDb. It says that while the film was released in the U.S. with a PG rating, in the UK it got an X rating at first.
Wow.
I think that's a little bit more honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only reason that this is a PG movie is that other you know, I think this is probably a PG-13 movie. But even then, I think, I mean, it's not especially grisly, but the subject matter is pretty, you know, there's some kinky stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Well, especially the horrible. Okay, so let's talk about the horrible scene where she decides Florence, the young psychic, the young mental psychic. What do they call her? Mental psychic?
They call her a mental psychic.
Mental medium. Mental medium.
Yeah.
The young mental medium. She decides that the way, because they find the body at one point of the guy Daniel that she's been dealing with, and they bury it. So she's like, well, you should be at rest now. So why are you still here? Because he shows back up in her room again, and he tells her that he wants to have sex with her. And so she's like, okay, I guess if that's what it takes. So then there's this weird scene where it reminded me a lot of Rosemary's Baby, actually, where she's having sex with this ghost, and I guess at some point she sees something about him because she screams. And then all of a sudden, everybody comes to her room, and she's lying on the bed with scratches all over her, which is why it reminded me so much of Rosemary's Baby. Scratches all over her, and she turns around with the freakiest look on her face and just like giggles. It was so creepy. Oh my God, that freaked me out so bad.
Well, that part where
that scene probably earned the X for the UK people, I bet.
Well, there's all kinds. There's all kinds of stuff. And it has some cool effects too. I like when they're summoning the ghost, and then he says like, "Leave a ghost sample," which I'm like, ew.
That was awesome. Yeah, it was the ectoplasm.
Ew. Yes. Don't.
Would you please leave it? That was so funny. Please leave a sample in the cup.
Ugh. Yeah, like none of that was like. I was like, oh, do you really want that? And the
yeah,
ghost
of course I do. It's
like,
totally Ghostbusters.
And the ghost is probably like, oh well, this is tame compared to all those orgies. Sure, here, have a ghost sample. But and then
I'm sure that's where Ghostbusters got that from. Actually, it was from this film.
Probably.
Ectoplasm is actually a thing.
Yeah,
Sure,
I know,
yeah,
but I mean the scene itself of them taking the sample.
Oh no, there's a ton of stuff I feel like that Ghostbusters borrows from this. The idea that you can use radiation to sort of destroy ghosts. I mean, they don't use
EMP field. It's not even like traditional radiation. It's like the same thing you would destroy computers with, you know, which I think is actually one of the coolest theories of ghosts, and one of the most interesting ones as far as putting in almost as real as you can context is that, you know, the whole conservation of energy, matter is neither created nor destroyed, matter and energy. And so what you have are these places where matter congeals or energy stays, and ghosts are these like impressions of energy. All that kind of stuff in real ghost hunting, I think is extremely fascinating. So the fact that, you know, they call in, which by the way, where you get a ghost EMP field, and it's kind of ahead of its time for 73 as well, with the whole idea of the EMP, like an EMP bomb, except in this case it's a computer. But that idea is
he goes in the book. He takes just forever on this stuff. I mean, he spends so much time in the book proving to you how much sense ghosts make and how he can use his sort of demagnifier basically to drain all the electromagnetism out of the house. And his notion is if you do that, no more ghosts. That they're basically electromagnetic radiation, and so if he can just sort of dissipate it all with this big static machine, that it'll work. And he spends a long time, because he really wants to sell this idea in the book that he's thought about it a lot. And this is Richard Matheson doing exactly what he did with I Am Legend, where he came up with all this crazy pseudoscientific stuff about vampires, so that it would make sense. Same thing here, only now he's doing you know, the ghosts.
Oh, by the way, James on the chat was wondering if he watered down the material for the book.
The biggest place that he watered it down is in the sex. I mean, this might be an erotic film, but you know, it's. I put it this way: if this is a PG-13 movie, that book is a hard R or NC-17 book.
So it's more closer to would you say like a Clive Barker?
Yes. I mean, because, you know, when Mrs. Barrett gets all hornified by the scientific erotica, she does a lot of like full-on autoerotic stuff, and then, you know, I think she goes and hits on the little hippie, and she hits on Roddy McDowall, and when Pamela Franklin's character has sex with the ghost, it's a lot. In the movie, she sees something we don't see anything. Mm-hmm. In the book,
that's why I like the film, because everything is suggested in this movie. I love
in the book, he is a gloppy Raiders of the Lost Ark skeleton with a phallus inside of her. I mean, it's like a grody thing.
Yeah, but you can't. That's also the difference between cinema and in a book. In a book, you're going to describe something, and it's still up to the person to imagine what that looks like. Whereas in a film, you can do something suggestive, like have a close-up of somebody's face screaming, and you know they're seeing something horrible, but you don't actually have to show what the horrible thing is.
Well, plus it might look, honestly, you run the risk of things looking silly.
Right.
Well, it would look like the Tar Man from Return of the Living Dead with a penis.
That's right.
Well, I like that it's suggested too. I think not seeing that and having her scream like that is leads
he wrote a
to
weight
you
class.
like whatever
it's pure cinema. It's pure cinema.
Yes.
He wrote a movie that is way classier than his own book. I mean, it's really interesting to me that this guy, Richard Matheson, is so skillful that he could write a trashy book and then write a really pretty genteel, sexy movie version. I mean, that's just.
I don't know if I would call this genteel. It's not quite that light to me. I mean, there's so much perverted undertones in this movie.
I guess that's true, but I don't know. I find this movie to be very comforting. I mean, or rather, this is comfort food movie watching to me. Even though, yes, there is a lot of disturbing psychosexual nonsense going on, I love it. I mean, this is awesome movie making to me.
Well, I'm not saying that as a knock against it. I mean, you know, like I like Hellraiser, and that's a kind of a creepy, pervy movie too.
Yes.
But
no, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, and it's funny. This would go well with Hellraiser, actually, in a way. And Hellraiser, of course, is a hell of a lot rougher. But look, this is 1973. Yeah. You know what? The same look. Exorcist comes out in 1973, and in a sense, the reason that this movie, Legend of Hell House, gets overlooked a lot is this is an homage to Shirley Jackson and The Haunting, and the world is watching Reagan with, you know, all of her crazy stuff with, you know, Jason Miller and Ellen Burstyn in The Exorcist. So it's this sort of gothic. This is at base still a gothic horror movie, and it kind of got lost. But I mean, now it doesn't even matter. Now, you know, nobody would remember. It's so funny how all those rivalries that made a big difference 40 years ago just don't matter at all anymore. So let's see, where does that get us? We have last we left off. Oh yeah, okay. Well, finally, things after Pamela Franklin, you know, little Florence Tanner gets taken over by Daniel. She's nutso. They're going to take her out of the house, but still they tell her all about their plans to use their big machine to suck the psycho power out of the house, which is dumb. I think the moment they figured out that she appeared to be possessed by the power of the house, they should have stopped telling her all of their plans. Because so immediately she takes
But you have to think about the logic that the professor is using. He does not think that she is literally possessed. He thinks that there is no actual intelligence behind these hauntings. It's just negative energy, and that it is your baggage that you're bringing to the table that makes what appears to be these entities. So he does not actually believe she's possessed.
See, here's the thing that and you know, partly it could be his arrogance, but what I don't understand about guys like him is why chance it? Ixnay on the hand play, and let's just humor me for a minute and say she's possessed. Let's just not talk about it. Or you can just explain everything like a Bond villain, you know,
right
in front of the possessed ghost guy. But even if you don't believe that it's really ghost, why risk that? Just
it's funny how
that's crazy, man. You sure are possessed.
And she goes, well, what are you going to do with that machine? And he's like, oh, well.
That was so stupid. Why he answered that question the way he did.
Well, you realize, Julia, she's also a woman, so what can she really do? I mean, he's established that early on.
So she grabs, I can't remember what tool she grabs.
It's like a fireplace poker.
She grabs the fireplace poker, which I was thinking was going to go beat somebody. They kept showing that thing. I was thinking at some point somebody is bound to be impaled by that thing. And it turns out it's just the machine. And then she whacks Roddy McDowall on the side of the neck with it, which for some reason knocks him out, and I don't understand why, but whatever.
Well, he's a weak guy.
I guess so.
You know, they really do make him try to make him ineffective, even though he's strong enough to survive. I think that's the deal. He's strong enough to survive the first encounter, but he's kind of so broken by that.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, people get knocked out. People have definitely varying degrees of KO, or you know.
Well,
the KO of this movie. So.
He kind of fits within the sort of psychic character archetype where he's physically frail, but he's mentally strong.
Yeah, exactly.
And he makes it clear, you know, even Dr. Barrett is clear enough to that. He goes, you know, we're wasting you being here because, you know, everybody knows that basically he is shielded. He's got, in a sense, later we're going to find out lead is important. In a sense, he's got big psychic lead walls all around his brain where he's not letting this house get. And the one time he does, he it like twists him backwards and gives him a seizure. So he's right. He's such a powerful medium that he doesn't have any business being in the house or opening up to it. So basically, after Tanner attacks the machine, luckily she doesn't really break anything because she doesn't know what to break. And the ghost within her doesn't know what to break. She goes off to the Satan Chapel, which they have, with a big horned Jesus and lots of vaguely sexual paintings around the chapel. And in a really weird scene, a giant crucifix falls on her and kills her. And I think kind of impales her through the lower waist. I'm not clear on this. But
it did
really
kind of look that way, like.
Yeah.
Well, that would fit with the whole MO, but yeah.
Yeah.
Except in reality, like, that's just really the ghost being a jerk, because he's already done about as much as he can to her.
Yes.
So then Roddy McDowall has this, like, brilliant epiphany that the fact that all of the fact that all of these people have had injuries that involve their legs in some way.
Because she leaves the note. She leaves a note for him before she dies.
Oh, right.
Her own blood.
Yeah. Yes.
But one more person dies. Because basically, there's a false victory here. They turn on the machine and they go, "Well, that's the end. Let's go walk about the."
Yeah.
The
and then I was like, I told Jason, I said, I guess the last 15 minutes of the film will just be them celebrating Christmas and being happy that they got out of there.
Right. So they come back and the house appears to be clean. Roddy McDowall, risks opening himself up to the house, and he's like, "I'll be damned, your machine actually did it." And it's really cool. And he runs around and goes, "This house is clean. It's awesome." And then basically it all starts to fall apart. Barrett is like happy he's going to go publish his paper or whatever he's going to do, but then the little needles on the machine start jumping again, and that's when it all falls apart for him, because like Tony was mentioning, the time codes. Now the time code jumps forward 15 minutes, and Barrett is dead. Boom! It's like he's killed off screen. And that the ghosts are back.
Well, he's sort of killed off screen. He does see all of a sudden his machines start going crazy with activity, and then they explodes on him, and so you do see his face get messed up. That's
right. The ghost, using that same sort of violent blow stuff up, it blows up one of his, like a sort of desktop machine that he has. And it just goes boom into a bunch of pieces and hurts his face. And then when next we find him, he has been sort of mangled by a chandelier, and all of the iron candlesticks have been have impaled various parts of his legs and through his throat and stuff like that. So he's just totally. Some ghost has really done a number on him with the chandelier. And so then there are two. Now there's only two people left alive, and the machine didn't work. And then, it's really kind of cool. I kind of feel like there's not enough setting it up, but I can forgive everything here. Roddy McDowall decides, I have to stick around and solve and fix this house. And in the logic of the movie, fixing the house involves solving the mystery, that you find out really the movie is a mystery about why is Emmerich Belasco still haunting this house? Why is the evil guy still haunting this house? And, how did he survive the attack of the machine and so forth?
Well, first they figure out that the reason that David, the son, is still haunting the house is because the father's kind of trapped him there.
Well, but it turns out not to be the case. It turns out that there's no David, there's no multiples, there's just the father. It's just the father the whole time.
It was never David?
It was never David.
Okay.
Only Belasco.
Yes, only Belasco. And Belasco himself basically has walled himself. He's a body, but his brain and his ghost are still there. And in movies like this, if you find the body, you get rid of the ghost. because it's all.
So then the body is who?
The body.
Michael Goff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. How many movies have we seen this guy in now? Because he was in. He was in Dracula.
Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow. That's right. I could have sworn there was something else recently. Michael Goff, whatever. He gets around, boy. I mean, this actor. Yes, he plays Emmerich Belasco, who, with his little goblet of wine, I guess during the party when all the other people died, he has shut himself into a lead room where his psychic power will live forever.
And also his body, apparently, because he doesn't deteriorate at all because of the magical properties of the room somehow have kept him preserved.
Yes.
It could be, it's pretty common for evil to preserve itself as well. I mean, he could be feeding, as far as we know, he could be feeding off of all the terrible crap that happens, too.
Yeah.
They never really explain, but, that's always kind of my impression is, like, if you're evil enough, at worst, you just get kind of like Palpatine,
Yes.
Kind of around a long time, you look pretty gross, but, you're still around. So he hasn't had that much time. So.
Yeah.
The IMDb people point out that the prosthetics that they reveal him to have for his legs are actually 1970s prosthetics, even though 20 years he was supposedly there 20 years.
Right.
Well, he's that awesome.
Yes.
He's that awesome. He has future legs.
Well, he isn't supposed to be ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
There you go.
So you just gave that. That was exactly. So I truly think this is like the most exciting part of the movie. It really, really is very cool when Roddy McDowall figures out that this ghost, this house, attacks people's legs, and he thinks that means something, and so then he psychoanalyzes the ghost and accuses him of being something that he didn't pretend to be. In other words, the ghost was Emmerich Belasco, the roaring giant, and so Roddy McDowall surmises that actually he was motivated by jealousy of other people's height, and he was actually, in his words, a funny little bastard dwarf, and he, stayed in the shadows and wore fake legs and just had all of his perversions came around his self-hatred. And while he's figuring all this stuff out, of course, he has to scream it over these hurricane-force winds as the house just whips him.
Well, he's beating him like it kicks, like it's like the ghost version of like kicking him down. It's not just wind. It's like actually like it's a fist.
Yeah, it'll go. You'll hear this sort of whip sound. It'll go whack, and Roddy McDowall will get sort of thrown across. It's awesome. I mean, it's really exciting
to
watch Roddy McDowall fight the wind.
If you did do the kind of remake thing route that Drew was talking about, why hasn't this been remade? It's like one of those things where like you could even go further. I mean, if a ghost is pretty scary if it can like bloody your nose, If it punches you on the bridge of your nose, you're not expecting that from a ghost, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it'd be like having your ass kicked by the Invisible Man.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, the funny thing is the way that it is attacking him, it seems less like the Invisible Man kicking him in the chest and more like just something monstrous, something huge that just is backhanding him with just power, and so Roddy McDowall, who up to now has been the most closed and cowardly one, is physically, it's Roddy McDowall, by the way, pulling out like all stops and chewing the, he's physically dragging himself and screaming and accusing and laughing and doing just everything. It's awesome, especially when you consider, by the way, they're not going to have sound effects while he's actually acting it. If you got to see like the dailies of this, it would have been just Roddy McDowall doing all of this shtick with none of the whip sounds or the howling or any of that stuff.
It's like, have you seen those videos that are like, just the vocals for like, they did it for Firestarter and stuff like that. I'll send you those. So it's just the Firestarter video with the crazy guy on Firestarter, but you can hear like the train nearby in the tube and just him kind of shuffling.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. I'll send it to you, but yeah. So it would have been like that. Yeah, he's just screaming at the top of his lungs, which,
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm telling you that this is the whole movie. I think is delightful. I love it from beginning to end. But this final scene where Roddy McDowall takes the ghost of Hart is just great. I mean, I really, it's the kind of thing that I want to rip off somewhere, because I love when heroes use their brains to finally pick apart what's going on with the bad guy.
I liked it okay, but because of how pat it is, like, it didn't work for me, I think, as well, because it's kind of like, it feels very Hardy Boys, like Scooby-Doo. It feels very kind of Scooby-Doo, like, B, and then he kind of goes and he's like, and his legs were really modern, prosthetics and stuff like that.
Well, I agree they should have been wooden prosthetics.
Well, just in general, like, the way it reveals, I like the part where he's, like, the supernatural part, but a lot of the reveal part kind of was like, and it actually, that really felt, it really did feel like a lot of horror novels, and so maybe that in that case, maybe it was just because it was less cinematic and more horror novel.
There's a lot of, you're right that there's a lot of pseudo-psychiatry stuff going on there. I mean,
and it's neat. It just, for some reason, that last bit kind of fell, it didn't live up in the same way I'd hoped, I guess. But it was still cool. It just, I didn't enjoy it, I think, as much as you did. Something about it, like I said,
cool.
Felt very end of Scooby-Doo.
Yes. No, I agree. I love it, but I agree that there's a hokiness to it. So it's hard to figure out.
But again, like I said, there's lots of horror novels that we read that were, slightly later, around that time period, that kind of have that feeling at the end.
Right.
So it's more of a stylistic approach.
You have to have a big reveal where the main character, I guess you're right that it is a novelty kind of thing, where the main character gathers whoever the heck is around to listen to all of this and go, well, actually, it turns out that, the ghosts were never here. They were always over there. And, in fact, the final ghost is, and he opens up a cask or a wall or takes a sledgehammer and bashes open a hollow statue and reveals where. And, in fact, that happens here. Roddy McDowall, pulls out his last sort of trick, which is this deep thinking that causes glass to shatter, which reveals a hidden room. And there's your lead-lined room. I mean, so yes, hokey it is, but it, that worked for me.
I do like that their final act, since they've opened this up, is they basically turn on the computer and walk away from the explosion.
Right.
That's right. And that is cool. Like, screw you. We know your tricks. Here it is, and they. Brrr. Although there is the cat from earlier that attacks, her brutally, and the cat's kind of, and then we see like a dead cat that's been attacked, and then and then we see the cat at the end. So who knows what that means? But
I sort of take that as the evil may survive. After all, we think we've got this figured out, but we really don't, which is really the larger debate throughout the entire movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's what we're supposed to get from that. It's just it's kind of cool because they don't really. I mean, it's a close up, but they don't really. It doesn't go like the cat doesn't look at them and laugh or something cheesy.
Or its eyes glow.
Yeah. It's like, hey, that could be something, and then they can close the gate. But it's the supernatural equivalent of like a bomb going off behind, like them throwing a match to the gasoline.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because now that they've opened up the lead room, the electromagnetic field will be able to work through the entire house and into that room and finally drain this evil house.
That's pretty cool.
That it is, yeah. It's really, really cool. Okay, we should get to final thoughts because we've definitely been going at this one for a while. But boy, what an exciting one to talk about. Let's make them brief and then come around for our endorsements. Tony, we've already been talking a great deal, but nevertheless, what are your final thoughts on The Legend of Hell House?
I really like it, and now I have to read the book since it sounds more kind of Clive Barker-y, and I do enjoy his work. So I'm gonna have to read the book, which is always cool. I enjoyed it. I love the atmosphere. I love all the bits. Like I said, the ending doesn't work as much for me, but it doesn't kill it or anything. Yeah, I would, it's creepier than tons of movies that, give me this over like the 13 Ghosts thing that came out a few years ago, or tons of modern horror. Like, give me this over that in a major way. So I really enjoyed it.
Did we go Julia next? I think
Mm-hmm.
it's right.
Julia.
Final thoughts?
Well, I think I've already said most of what I was thinking, but I just think it's, the whole way it's set up with the characters. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention the cat, the crazy black cat, which is part of the the craziness of the film, is that this black cat attacks.
Well, they mentioned it at the end, but we didn't mention it in the middle of the fight scene yet.
Oh, yeah. No, but I'm talking about the fact that, like, at the beginning, it's okay. So, yeah, I guess I just zoned out for while you said that. I missed it. Sorry. The cat's at the end on the wall when they leave, even though it's already been killed in the shower. Did you say that?
Yes,
kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't talk about
Sorry.
the shower part.
You left
Apologies.
the studio, didn't you?
I zoned out for a second. Anyway, but yes, that kind of thing is just like adding to and then the fog when they came in to the big cute giant house and all those things. I don't know. I just think it's a really fun, mood and setting for the movie. But anyway, yes, that's all really cool stuff, and I like the characters. I like the actors. I like that it's only 4 people.
Yeah.
I think that's nice and simple and not too hard to keep track of. So yeah, it's a great movie.
It's really, really good point. Drew, any final thoughts?
I will echo what everyone else is saying. This is a fun movie. In my opinion, this is probably the second best haunted house movie. Actually, I don't think I ever said that during this. I think The Haunting is definitely the best, but this, if you were going to make a top 10 list, would certainly be my number 2. And I like how kinky it is. Gotta enjoy the psychosexual aspects of it, and I always love seeing Roddy McDowall, as I am, as noted, way the heck back, a huge fan of Fright Night. So anything else that Roddy McDowall is in, I starts tickling my fan fancy. So yeah, great movie.
My final thoughts, I'll echo that. This is definitely in my top 5. It may be my second favorite haunted house movie. I also will love any. I've been a fan of Roddy McDowall since Tales of the Gold Monkey, which is a TV show that he was on, and I just love Roddy McDowall. I love the kinkiness of this movie, and it's interesting because I love Haunted House Expedition. I'm writing a Haunted House Expedition project right now, actually, and I'm really inspired by this thing. I do totally recommend the book also because it is. First of all, it's short. Richard Matheson was lucky enough to write in a period when when your best-selling novel, it was 1971 it came out, when your best-selling novel could be 250 pages long, and nobody had a problem with that. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but nowadays, even like men's action books like the Reacher novels are like 500 pages long. I don't know what that's about, but this is a really, really good picture. So, endorsements. Let's go around. Tony, do you have anything to recommend?
Oh, man, I thought of something earlier, and now I cannot remember. I can't remember last time I talked about the new RoboCop, because that was awesome.
Have you seen the new RoboCop?
No, not the new RoboCop, but the newly released Blu-ray.
Oh,
which
no,
super awesome. And
whoa, does it have the extra gratuitous Alex Murphy death scene?
It's like a 4K transfer, which I don't have a 4K TV, but whatever.
Right.
They left most of the film grain in. It's got extras galore that the previous one didn't have. In fact, I gave my previous one to my brother because this one was like $8 when I got it, which is amazing for such an awesome transfer. It's kind of like they were like, well, we have all this stuff. Let's just kind of make this a promo, and it's it was worth the double dip just because it has so many extras, and I had that one. But
that's a grody Man, that's a grody movie. I love it, but it is a pretty grody movie. And then
you'd buy that for $1?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is a really nice restoration. Like
that sounds great. That sounds
really,
fantastic.
and I think last time I checked, because I was telling a friend, like, it's only $8. I think it may be $16 now, but it's still, you know, I bet you could find it. If they're releasing it for $8, I'm sure you could find it around.
Well, I'm sure the Blu-ray restoration of RoboCop has to do with promoting, you know, RoboCop.
Absolutely. It looks. I mean, I guess I'm guessing, and I haven't checked online because I haven't really, you know, cared yet because I don't have a TV. But I'm guessing if it's a 4K restoration, maybe if you got a 4K TV, it would take advantage of that. I have no idea. I'm sure somebody's going to be like, that's not the way it works. Or maybe they will be like,
really
that's the way
strange.
it works. It's cool.
There's a moment in RoboCop when, you know, guy up in a building has some hostages, and RoboCop reaches through the wall and grabs the guy holding the hostages through the wall, and that was a direct lift from Batman: Return of the Dark Knight by Frank Miller. And I always thought that was just remarkable because Miller came in, you know, and wrote the screenplay for movie 2. But was Frank Miller involved at all in the writing of movie 1?
Also, it's in, you know, Blade Runner.
Well, that's true.
You know?
That's true.
But Frank Miller was. I know he was in 2, right? Like 2 and 3.
Yeah, no, he wrote number 2, and he acted in it. Yes, you know.
But I guess I haven't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like
if
I don't know this. I feel really cinematically challenged because I'm sure I should know this. But anyway,
there's a lot of Batman-ish stuff about
sure.
RoboCop. So yeah, well, that's an awesome one. Well, thank you for going. I don't think I have anything to endorse, and then coming up with an awesome one.
Yeah, I this restoration. If you're a fan, I mean, it's, like I said, uncut, tons of extras, commentaries, documentaries. I mean, if it was just the restoration where it looked, because again, they didn't like digitally scrub it for noise. Like there's some really noisy, grainy footage. Grainy in the
I'm surprised they didn't reanimate Ed 209. I mean, can you imagine?
It's beautiful though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's mine.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Julia, do you have anything to endorse this week?
Oh gosh, I've endorsed it before, but I'm going to say it again. Sherlock. I love Sherlock on the BBC. I mean, but actually we have it on the PBS. Yeah, sorry. It is so good. Oh my gosh. It's only the 3 2-hour or whatever 90 minutes, 100 minutes episodes that they do per season or series as they call them. And so they just wrapped up this last one, and it was so good. It's just such good. It's such movie quality television. It's great.
Very, very cool. All right. By the way, as Julia, what was our first date?
RoboCop.
That's right.
As I like to say, that shows you how much Jason was not thinking of me as girlfriend material at that point.
Ooh, that's a rough one.
And yet here you are.
I know, but I worked really hard, Drew.
Okay, Drew, do you have any endorsements?
Oddly, continuing our Batman theme, or I guess it was a RoboCop theme, but with some Batman sprinkled on top. I'm going back and endorsing the Justice League cartoon. I recently got Netflix streaming and joined the 21st century, and like a good nerd, the first thing I did was go back and start looking at all the old DC Universe animated thing. And the funny thing is I was actually at a point where I have started to hate Batman. I feel like he's become DC's version of Wolverine, and he's just used stupidly, and just become very overexposed. So I just was like, Batman, and I'm watching this cartoon. I'm like, Batman is awesome, and as it turns out, so is Superman, and Wonder Woman. They're all awesome. Like I go through bouts where I just get so sick of all these DC characters, and it's just seeing them used right. That's really all it takes. And this cartoon, they just get it. Everything about it, they just get it. And I wish so much of the thought that went into this was going into some of the comic book movies that we see, because there's a lot of care and love in this, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you have Netflix, they have the entire series. They have all of Justice League and the sequel series, Justice League Unlimited. Just take a couple of days if you have them and watch the living sin out of these.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. By the way, Paul Dini, who was like one of the major creative forces behind that show, was very recently on Kevin Smith's podcast talking about, you know, how awesome that show was and how awesome the old Batman show was, and you know, they go off at length on problems with modern, you know, adaptations. It's really cool, and you are so right. And also, I'm glad that you got Netflix streaming. I think that's really awesome.
I'm enjoying it. I've discovered. Jamie introduced me to 30 Rock. If I may squeeze in one more endorsement, which I normally hate sitcoms. I find sitcoms to be very stressful, and this is the first sitcom that I've liked since News Radio. So maybe I only enjoy sitcoms that take place in offices.
No, understood. All right, well, that's a really good one. Two things that I'm going to recommend, and if I already recommended it a couple weeks ago, I apologize. First of all, True Detective, which just started on HBO, is a fantastic, well-written detective show starring Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey.
Ladies.
A couple of Texas. Huh?
I said ladies.
Yes, as a Louisiana and Texas detective, respectively, investigating a serial killer in Louisiana. And it's really well done. It jumps back and forth in time between them younger and them older. It's great.
And yeah,
that's a really well done show. I also just came across, I'm really excited because both Netflix and also Dish, which I watch movies on all the time. Just earlier, I found another Jean Rollin. We've talked before about Jean Rollin, who made all these crazy, sexy 60s vampire movies, and he's French. And of course, Jess Franco was Spanish. And I found a movie made by Jess Franco and Jean Rollin, and it is everything you imagine that might be. It is called A Virgin Among the Living Dead, and it came out, also known in some countries as Zombie 4, because why not? And it came out in 1973, and it's exactly the sort of crazy, sexy, oddball vampire movie that they make. So yes, True Detective, which is really excellent, and Virgin Among the Living Dead, which is not remotely any of those things, but it is definitely watchable. So
well, it's known. I mean, you know, it's a known quantity.
Yes, Eurotrash is kind of we've never done true Eurotrash on this show, but it is its own thing, you know. And Tony and I have seen a lot of Eurotrash, and so maybe someday we'll pick like 3 good exemplars of the genre and go into it. Anyway, that's our show for the week. Thank you for joining Castle of Horror. If you like us, let us know. Come to the Facebook page and make comments and ask questions, make recommendations. Definitely, please like us on Facebook. Let your friends know. Leave reviews on iTunes. Do anything you can to get more people listening, because we always want more listeners, and we will hopefully be back next week. Thank you very, very much.
Also, thanks again, James, guest 4, for hanging out in the chat room. And we, tell people all the time, like, come in and, we try to chat as well as while we're talking. So, thanks a ton for, there's an actual interactive aspect if you want to take advantage of that. So
yeah. We would love for you to be in the chat room while we're talking. We'll answer your questions and stuff. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being on.
Bye.
Cool. Take care.
Night.
Night.